When I was 11 years old, one evening during the winter, I was watching a TV show that changed my life. It was showing the amazing journey of Voyager 1 and 2 that were sent by NASA to explore the other planets of our solar system. I was watching and I couldn't believe how much joy this was bringing into my heart and how interesting worlds there were out in the sky. So I decided that I would like to become an astronomer and to explore the Earth and the other planets. I started to journal in a notebook where I put everything that I could find about the other planets and the solar system, so I can have it in a small book that was only mine. Several years after that, I started my journey in geography because I started school in Sofia, Bulgaria, where I was studying geography and earth sciences. Again, another event helped me to understand that there was another super interesting for me universe that was called Geographic Information Systems, and all those technologies like satellite imaging of the Earth that geographers were using to create software and digital maps. So after that, I decided that this is going to be my career path, that I would like to do this as my job. I started studying very hard and I started to learn more and more about all those technologies that so much inspired me like a child. Currently, I'm assistant professor at Sofia University, where I teach at cartography at Faculty of Geology and Geography, and I have many students that I hope I inspire every day with my lectures. Cartography is a super strange thing. It's a science because it has everything a science needs to have in order to be called a science. For example, it has terminology, it has different branches, it has everything that has to be there in order to call it a science. But also, on the other hand, cartography is an art. Because when you create maps, you have to deal with colors, the meaning of colors, and how to make visuals that could be understood by your audience. So cartography is a science, but also cartography is an art. On the third side, cartography is super technological and innovative field that uses data from sensors, uses data from satellites, and uses innovative software that we call geographic information systems. Cartography is like a focal point, is like in the center of the universe because it helps people to solve many problems. For example, Asian people and we as a modern society today have almost the same problem when we want to locate ourselves on the map. Ancient Chinese have discovered a solution to this problem that they called Sinan, or South Governor in Chinese language, which actually was the old name of the compass. This tool was used back then to help them position their streets and buildings so they could fit the feng shui principles. Later on, the compass looked like this, and maybe when you hear the word compass, you imagine something like this. And these are 3 slides that I use during my lectures when we talk with students about this tool. But when I stop here, I always ask them, do you have a compass now with you? Do you use compass every day? Yes or no? Do you use compass? Do you have a compass now with you?
No.
No? Always. always, the majority of people are saying no, of course, but actually you all have a compass with you every day because it is a mobile app, or if you don't have this mobile app, maybe while using Google Maps, for example, this software and the technology is using compass too, so it's the same. Compass is helping us to navigate in space, but imagine what it's like when you are a sailor or when you are living on an island somewhere far, far away from the land. You have to navigate in water, which is a very complex task. People that are living in the Marshall Islands had this solution to this problem. These are their maps that are not entirely maps, they are more like schemes or pieces of art maybe for someone that were helping them to navigate between the separate islands of this island group. And the sticks that are connecting these little shells actually are their main routes between these different islands. The same problem, but with different solution we have today when we want to find the marine route that is connecting one port to another, or to discover where the ships are traveling across the globe. So we can use services like Marine Traffic, which is a super cool website that shows real-time marine traffic data to visualize these many hundreds and thousands of ships across the globe in real time. Another problem that people had and have also today is how to use maps to help them transport goods or people. I'm sure that all of you in a specific point in your life had this feeling of having a map in your hands and wondering where something is, near or far away from you. So people in ancient Rome had the same problem, and they made this famous Pointinger's map. This is an ancient Roman map that was created during Roman times, but what we can see here is medieval copy of this Pointinger's map. It was named after the name of the person who discovered this map. So as you can see, it has super strange dimensions. It is very wide, 6 meters wide, and very low in height. It's only 34 centimeters height. So it covers the whole world between Great Britain and India and Sri Lanka to the east. So you can see that the whole world that they have imagined, that they have known at this time, is super elongated. As you can see, all the roads led to Rome, and all the places that were very important for the ancient Romans were visualized by beautiful symbols, the roads that were connecting them, and so on. The Balkans were pictured on the 6th and the 7th piece of this huge map. And when we look closely at the territory that is covering today's Bulgaria or today's Serbia, we can find many settlements with their ancient names. For example, Serdica, which is the ancient name of Sofia, or Philippopolis, the ancient name of Plovdiv, or Belgrade, which is again presented on this map. So this problem, how to use maps in transport, is something that is very popular today. In February this year, when Russia invaded Ukraine, a map became very important and very useful, very shareable on the social media to show us how different the air traffic became after the war started. So this is a perfect example of a map that is showing transportation system, air traffic again in real time, like the marine traffic before that. Maps have been used from many centuries to communicate political views and to influence people. Ancient mapping was related to positioning your tribe or your settlement and knowing where the important things around you are. But after that, after the great geographical discoveries, in Western cartography, it was huge, the cartography was in huge importance because of these travelings. And there was something specific about putting labels and drawing borders. Western cartographers knew that if there was a crown and a king in a specific territory, they have to put his kingdom on the map. And that is why there is a huge difference between what we can see in the historical maps that we are using in school lessons during history classes, and what we can see on maps like this. What we are studying in history classes is that during this time the Balkans were invaded by the Ottoman Empire. So in no map in Bulgaria you can see the label Bulgaria at this time. But here we can see labels like Bulgaria, Serbia, Vlachia, Macedonia, Romania, and many, many others. Another example of putting your views like a cartographer on the map and expressing your point of view is this famous map that was made by the cartographer Sebastian Münster that shows Europe like a queen. Its name is Queen Europe or Europa Regina. And when you look closely, you can see that Europe is portrayed like a queen, and specific parts of her body are labeled with names of the countries at this time. But as I mentioned, Sebastian Münster used this map to put his own political views about the situation at this time. For example, when you see the heart of Europe, you will see the label Bohemia, where he was born and where he was living. And also, Spain is labeled like the head of Europe. That is because his mother was Spanish. Today, we cannot do this like cartographers, of course. I cannot put Bulgaria in the heart of the universe. But we have to keep it as much simple as possible, because we can make some countries angry. As we know, unfortunately, there are many conflicts around the globe, and there are many places where it's not quite sure the situation, so we are not sure where to put the border, so nobody will be mad at us and everybody will be happy. Like you can see here how Google Maps are dealing with this problem between the border of Nepal and India and China. There are many places around the globe that have similar problems. And actually, in 2010, something happened that remained in history like the first Google Maps war. What happened was that one military representative from Costa Rica went into their neighbor's territory without knowing. And when they asked him, okay, what are you doing in our country? He said, oh, I'm sorry, but I'm not in your country. This is our territory. Just look at Google Maps. And after that, Google and many other big software providers that are providing normal people with such services like web maps, they realized that what they put like labels or borders is of huge importance, because people are seeing these maps like the ground truth. They don't care what the constitution or the international law is saying about borders. They just open the app won't see the border that they are looking for. We have such an example here in Europe, and as you can see, there are huge differences between the map on the left side and the map on the right side. One map of these two is what people are seeing when they open Google Maps from Russia about the Crimea. And the other one is what they are seeing, but when they open the map, the Google Maps, but from the Western world. So do you see the difference? The line is very, very different, and it's of huge importance. The first line is thick, which means that this is a border between two countries. And the second one is a dashed line, which means that there is some kind of problem or something unsolved. So we as cartographers have this super precious sometimes and naive way of putting labels and drawing lines and hoping that nobody will get mad at us. Maps also tend to be used for political propaganda. The left map here is example from a scientific paper that was published several years ago and shows a cartographic way of presenting a little bit of misleading information about Brexit. As we can remember, in 2016 there was a referendum in the United Kingdom with the question if people there want to leave the European Union or not. So they decided that they want to leave European Union, and it was called, this process was called Brexit. So this map shows the point of view that was led by the campaign Vote Leave, so the people who wanted to leave the European Union. And they were using classic science for visual communication and misleading. For example, this huge arrow that is bright and that is showing how many people will come to their land after they leave, after they stay in the European Union. Another thing that is very misleading is that there are only two countries that are labeled, Iraq and Syria. And when we hear their names, of course we remember that there are wars and there are unstable times and the situation is very difficult. Also, you can see how many people live in those countries that are going to join European Union in near future. And you can see how many people are living in Turkey. So they were trying to scare people that these huge numbers of new people are going to want to live in the United Kingdom, which of course is not the truth. The right map is one of the many maps that the famous Bulgarian artist Raico Alexiv prepared and left maybe several hundred pieces of art that contained political situations, caricatures and many other events, but in the form of maps and globes. So another problem with which we faced 2 years ago is the health problem. I think that we were remembered very well 2 years ago that there is nothing more important than our health. And while we were watching the news, reading newspapers, we were informed every day about the new cases, where we have new cases, where we don't, do we have to stay at home, and so on. So main media communication ways of sharing this information for the government with us were the maps. But this map here shows the same, but from 200 years ago. It was made by a famous doctor who lived in London. His name was John Snow, and he had to deal with a disease that nobody was understanding why it was happening, where it was coming from. So what he did remained in history as the first spatial analysis, or analysis performed on a map. He went to all the houses in this neighborhood and asked people for their habits, where they have been eating, what were their what was their everyday life, and so on and so on. And then when he put all this information on the map, he realized that there was something wrong with one water pump that people were drinking water from. So they, after that, closed that water pump, and the cholera disease just disappeared. 2 years ago, we were seeing maps like this. I'm sure that here in Serbia you had maybe different or a similar version of this information piece, and we were informed by the authorities by using visual information about the new disease that we were facing. Often when I share with people that I'm a geographer, or when they ask me what I do for a living, they react like I'm somebody who is traveling the world and I make discoveries every day and my life is super crazy and cool, and I just live on the edge. It is quite right, but of course not exactly right. Geography is very interesting science and is related to traveling, of course, but in the past there was a lot more to discover than now we have today. There were many maps in the past that were used for naming new territories for the people that were sending those travelers during the great discoveries. And with these maps, the kings and the queens just were saying, okay, this is my new territory, we're going to name it that way. Today, geographers are also making discoveries, not like whole continents, of course, or new seas or oceans, but still we can share an example with you, like this one. This is a new mountain that was discovered in 2012 by a scientist who was exploring satellite images of Mauritania in Africa, and while he was exploring these satellite images, he discovered a new mountain. It's of course a small mountain, but still it's a huge discovery, because it appeared that it was a jungle that was not touched by the humans at all. So it has a unique life, unique animals and plants that live there. Satellites help us today to make interesting discoveries and to see the world from a point of view that we didn't have before. This island was named Landsat after the name of the longest ever program for Earth observation. Landsat was started in the 70s by NASA and the United States Geological Survey and operates till these days. This image was acquired in the 70s, and by using this data from the satellite Landsat 1, people could discover this small island. Of course, it's a small island, it's a little piece of rock in the ocean near the Canadian shore, but it was a new island that was discovered in the 70s and nobody knew that it existed before that. Now in my work I am using Landsat 8 and Landsat 9, and this program still operates today. People have view of the world map in their heads from their childhood until they die. And how we perceive the world map is again something that's very different in the different regions of the world. This is the oldest world map that's called Babylonian map of the world and was discovered in Iraq. It's dated like 5th or 7th century before Christ and shows the whole known to these ancient people world. And the little hole that you see in the middle of the map is called Axis Mundi, or the axe of the world. So the people were thinking that they are living in the center of the world. And if you try to search in Google for world map or different perceptions of the world map, you will see again different views of the contemporary world. What we are seeing in our heads when we think of the world map maybe is the map shown like this, with Africa and Europe in the middle. But if you travel to China or South America or some distant islands in the Pacific Ocean, you will see world maps that are positioned and centered where those people live, because people like to think that they are most important in the world and they are center of the universe. Maps also have been used a lot for tracking changes. In the past, in analog ways, in some old ways, but now we are using different technologies. This map is from the 12th century, and shows the ethnic structure of the Bulgarian part, which is near the Romanian border and near the Black Sea. It's called Dobruja, and it was prepared by a professor named Romansky, and with this map he wanted to show what is the ethnical structure of the population in this specific year, 100 years ago. So the green parts of the settlements are showing the Bulgarian population, the purple ones are showing the Turkish, and so on and so on. So we can use this map and compare it with the data that we have for the ethnical structure of the population today and see how these wars and many other unpleasant events that happened on this territory during these 100 times has restructured this population. And when we compare this, actually we can see how these wars and events are shaping the way the settlements look. Today, of course, we are doing almost the same, but as I mentioned, we as geographers and as cartographers are using innovative technologies, and by using the archives of the Landsat program and data from the current program of the European Union that is called Copernicus, we can map the processes and the changes of our planet in real time. This is the way a river in Brasilia is changing its riverbed for the last 40 years. And we can also track what's happening with the glaciers by using, again, satellite images to map the retreat of the ice. This is the Columbia Glacier positioned in North America, and you can see how fast actually it disappears because the planet is warming and the climate is changing. those technologies are super cool and I love them and they are very good and I'm happy that we have it. But sometimes I feel tired because everything is super dynamic, everything is super fast forward, it's just crazy. So when I want to take a break, when I want to do nothing but stare at the monitor of my computer, I love to do something that's a little bit strange maybe, but actually led to uh, having a huge collection of beautiful pieces of art. I'm going to show you now a short video with my discoveries that contain one of the most precious items that I have captured from space, from those satellites, mainly from Sentinel-2, a satellite from the European Space Agency and program Copernicus. And with them I would like to share with you this beautiful point of view that satellites are providing us, and I hope that you will feel a little bit inspired by the beauty of the earth. Since 2015, when I started my journey at Sofia University, me and my colleagues from the Faculty of Geology and Geography, Cartography and GIS department, also the Bulgarian Geographical Society, the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences, we have performed many events, trainings, courses and so on in order to inspire and motivate students and children in our country. I have trained several thousand teachers and students on how to use these technologies and how to implement these images, these innovations in the classroom, in hope for finding many other children that, like me, will get their notebooks and start writing their something that's very interesting for them, or something that has touched their lives and their hearts. I hope that you liked the amazing world of maps, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.